Hello. Now I did mention that I was returning to some ships I hadn't played in a while, and one of them is of course the Mahan, the tier 7 USDD. In fact, on my main account, my Mahan stats are absolutely atrocious, because the last time I played the Mahan on my main account was back when it was absolutely horrible. You couldn't stealth torp, everything about it was awful. It has of course received a huge chunk of buffs since there, and honestly, the Mahan does not deserve a bad rep right now. The Mahan is very strong, almost I would say a carry deity. You can quite comfortably carry in the ship if it comes to that, and it just has a lot of power right now. The ability to stealth torp and a lot of gun power. It still lacks in concealment, of course. If you go full concealment expert, you got 6.9 km, which I'm running right now, and that's a bit of an awkward concealment because the Farragut I think has what, 6.4, 6.6, and then of course the Benson that comes right after has like 5.9, 5.8. So the problem of course with having this really awkward concealment is that whenever you get up tiered or facing lower tiers, you tend to be the guy with the worst concealment, which, considering you want to go in there, fight other DDs and contest caps as I'm doing here, being outspotted by the enemy is no fun at all and can be quite frustrating. Excuse me, just woke up. So these are pretty much issues that you suffer in the Mahan, but then again, these are issues that every tier 7 DD suffers from. This isn't something specific just to the Mahan. It's because of how the concealment works in this game. It ramps up constantly. Your concealment gets worse and worse the higher tier you go. And smoking up this guy since he's being a potato, and I have to smoke up myself as well. Anyway, concealment ramps up the entire way. So the problem of course with this is that the game is balanced around tier 8, 9, 10 when you get the additional module that increases your concealment. But at tier 7 you don't have access to it yet, so tier 7 is kind of the red-headed stepchild where you have highly increased concealment but you still don't have access to the module that decreases it. So that's why pretty much all tier 7 silver ships tend to have really awkward stats when it comes to concealment. Of course the premium ones tend to not really suffer from the same issue in the same way. Regardless, Königsberg shows up, instantly start hammering him. US AP, as you saw me using there, is surprisingly strong and shouldn't be underestimated, switching to AP again as he's giving broadside. And this US AP has great pen, as you can see, easily citadeling him. In fact, you can citadel a variety of different cruisers. In fact, even battleships giving you broadside will eat a lot of AP damage. You see Colorados, New Mexicos giving you broadside. You can hit them from 4 or 3k damage per volley with your Mahan AP. It's very strong. So don't underestimate the power it has. At long ranges, of course, HE is much more reliable, and against DDs, angle targets, HE is of course the most reliable tool, as you can see here, especially since you get to start fires on them. But something that is highly underestimated is the AP. The Scharnhorst, is he going to push in? You can see, as I was saying, I now switch to AP when the Scharnhorst pushes up, and instead of using HE, I now punish him with AP, and you can see the amount of damage that he's actually taking from this. Well, that wasn't exactly the best example, but you can see the volleys start to chunk in. That was the over 2k volley, and when you land this kinds of volleys consistently, it really starts to add up. Sadly, he's turning and angling against me, which means I have to switch to HE. It looks like he is about to rush my smoke. Where is actually my team? How is he able to do this? My team looks to have some really interesting positions, which means he's actually getting away with this somewhat unscathed. But I still have smoke left, and of course here comes one of the really unique things about the Mahan. It has access to torpedo tubes on both sides. Now, this is both an advantage and a disadvantage. It's an advantage in the way that you actually can shoot 12 torps instead of 8. The problem is you have to turn your ship around to gain access to these, which is of course pretty damn frustrating. Oh, is he gonna dodge them? Doesn't matter, I already switched to AP, which would have killed him if he had dodged them. The Mars pushes up. Now the Mars isn't really that big of a threat. He doesn't really have that huge German AP power yet. I mean, yes, his AP can punish you, but if you angle against him, and in general, your HE is just so powerful. And when it comes to straight up gunfights at close range, you kind of bully everyone else in the Mayhem. No one can really match up to your sheer gun power at this. I mean, look at my reload, look at the amount of damage it comes out. I'm running Adrenaline Rush, of course, but already without it, you get a 4-second reload on these guns, and you tend to melt enemy DDs very, very quickly. So you are a bully. Your problem is the concealment, but when it comes to torpedo power, the ability to stealth torp at 9.2 km, and the sheer gun power, combined of course with the US smokes, which are the longest duration smokes in the game, which means of course what I'm doing here, stealth firing or smoke firing with defensive smokes, is very viable and a huge source of your income. So when it comes to carrying, this ship is very capable. In fact, I haven't really minded if I end up in standard battles or domination battles. In domination battles, I'll happily push into the caps and contest them and duke it out with enemy DDs. In standard battles, I'll happily just stealth torp, smoke up, and then just burn down battleships and, well, anyone else who happens to come nearby. So, surprisingly strong these days. It used to be a horrible ship, but these days the Mahan really is a very, very strong ship, and I don't think it deserves the bad rap it has. Citadeling the Emile Bertin, which is surprising considering even this ship, as you can see, is overpenning him. The Emile Bertin, of course, has extremely trollish armor, where most of the time you'll just overpen him unless he angles against you, and then sometimes randomly you'll get Citadel, which makes no sense. It's just very trollish armor. While I've been fighting on the middle, or trying to hold down the middle, they have been pushing up the left side. So I drop some preemptive torps. Let's see if there's someone here I can burn down. The York, he looks like he's angling away, which is good for me, of course, because York German Hydra could be a real issue. That's, of course, something you have to keep in mind when you play this ship, is that there's a lot of Hydra around these tiers. People really love Hydra around these tiers. So it's very likely that you might have one of those rushing into your smokes with Hydra active, so you gotta keep that in mind. Is this nice enough stopping completely? I wonder if my torps got spotted. There was a plane around here. It's possible the plane might have been hovering above the smoke, and because this guy was sitting in my smoke, neither of us saw him. If a plane is above your smoke and you torp, then your torps get spotted. Oh yeah, there's a fighter hovering right here. I peeked out of the smoke. There was a bomber nearby that gave us that information as well now. But that means I have to bail. My smoke is fading. My torps are going to miss. I would love to be able to use my other side torps as well. But while they were away, I managed to capture the 2 central circles, which is of course good since we need these points because my team has been crumbling pretty hard. In fact, out of the 5 kills that my team has, 4 of them are by me. I do get plane spotted here, which is very awkward. I turn on the AA, but the AA really isn't that good. If you run the Sea Hull, you get access to defensive AA, but even with defensive AA, Mayhan's AA really isn't much to brag about. It's very, very short range focused and doesn't really pack much of a punch, but I turned it on since I would be plane spotted anyway, and I might as well help this carrier shoot down these planes to get rid of them as soon as possible. They are finally shot down. So I smoke up and get into cover as soon as my smoke allows, because obviously I don't want to be sitting in the open. This York. This York. Yeah, I'm very skeptical staying. I'm gonna switch to the other side, see if I can torp from the other side as well. But when you have a York pushing that happily and that straight, always keep in mind German cruisers. They are the most likely targets to be running hydroacoustic surge because they have the increased range that no other nation has. Let's see. I'm actually gonna land torps. Is he running hydro? I landed torps, but he is running hydro. Okay, well that was very confusing because I was not expecting to land any torps. Because usually, if they don't show torps, then you can tell they are running hydro. But in this case, this Gneisenau managed to eat the torp, but the York was still running the hydro, so I have no idea what they were doing there. Some sort of potato maneuvers, but that kind of juked me. But I flee in time, and create enough distance between me and the York so that the Hydra no longer spots me. The problem here is, of course, as they spread out, they'll be able to see me past my smoke, so I'm trying to create as much distance as possible. I secured the Gneisenau, which means though that I can keep the Nuremberg and York behind the smoke and me. I can keep this gap between us. And I'm actually opening fire to see if I can chip this guy down a bit. I'm inside the Hydra range again. I'm just dropping the right side torps for the sake of delaying him and forcing him to pay more attention to dodging torps than shooting me. I'll also secure the Kraken with that kill, which was of course quite nice. At this point, the 6 kills my team has, 5 of them are by me. But I slip behind the island, and I just ducka my heart out and hope to kill these guys before they close the range. Now, small islands like this, especially flat islands, are surprisingly beneficial to you as USDD, because the USDDs have very floaty arcs. Now this is something that is often complained about, that it makes it quite hard to hit targets far away, but they do have certain advantages, and that's in situations exactly like this one. You're able to lob your shells easily over these small islands, and thanks to the penetration, the shells are still very, very potent. As you can see, citadeling and punishing this Nuremberg without issues. In fact, I'm closing in. I'm trying to sail behind this island because I want to keep the island between me and the Nuremberg, because as soon as there's no island between us, he can hit me. But the closer I get to the island, the safer I should be. You see, I'm already undetected at this point. Repair the fire. And even if he tries to shoot me here, he's going to struggle with the island between me and him. You see, I'm constantly keeping the island between me and him. He tries to shoot, no damage done. It all hit the island, which is of course my plan here. I am using the island to my advantage, and I should be able to finish this guy off for my 6th kill. Sadly, what I did not take into account was my teammates. Of course, teammate Gneisenau decides the 2k HP Nuremberg is something he wants to torp, and he team kills me right in the back. And with me dead, my team collapses and are unable to really do much after this, and they just get overrun, so the game ends. Still, regardless of that unfortunate ending, 102,000 in damage, pretty comfortable Kraken and Confederate. And you really got to show off all the powers of the ship. The AP, the HE, the torpedoes. It really is like a powerhouse at tier 7, I feel. The Mahan has a pretty bad rep, and I don't think it deserves the bad rep. I think it's a very strong DD in its current state. Looking at the team score, well, the team score does tell the story about my team. In fact, the Gneisenau that team killed me is 4th. And if the guy who team killed me is 4th, I shudder to think what the rest of my team was doing in this game, especially the 2 Gneisenaus that managed to place themselves lower than him. So sadly, could not carry this team to victory, but sometimes you get these teams that make it very, very hard. There's not really much you can do about this. Detailed report-wise, potential damage only 700k, no spotting damage really, but that's considering we had carriers around. Your role as a spotter is not as important, especially in random battles, if there's carriers around, because with planes flying around constantly, you are less of a active spotter, and you can use the spotting to your own advantage by dealing damage of your own from your smokes and so forth. Damage wise, AP actually dealt significantly more than my HE, and you can look at the gun damage. 73k of my damage came from guns, and in fact, even though I landed 5 torps, the actual torp damage is very small. So while this is a hybrid boat, I would still say that the majority of your damage in a Mahan will come from the guns, unless of course you get very lucky with torp volleys. Sometimes you'll get those perfect volleys on some Bismarck or something, turpits that will sail in a straight line and eat all your torps, and you'll get a bunch of damage. But ultimately you should count on the fact that you're going to have to do a lot of gunning down to rack up those scores. Anyway, let me move on to my recommended build for the Mayhem. Right, as usual, I will start with the modules. Now, while the range is pretty useful, the hull upgrade is far, far better. It gives you HP, maneuverability, all these things, and most importantly, it allows you to upgrade the better torps that give you better range. So get the B hull, follow it up by getting the torpedo upgrade. I don't recommend the C hull unless you're going with a carrier or facing carriers all the time, because while the C hull does give you access to the defensive AA consumable, it does cost you one of your main turrets. So you go from 5 turrets to 4 turrets just to slot this one. So not really worth it, as you pretty much just straight up lose a lot of firepower. So hull, torpedoes, gun range. Consumable wise, premium smoke if you can afford it, followed by premium repair and premium speed boost. But the smoke is the most important one, since not only does it give you an additional charge, it also reduces the cooldown by what, 100 seconds? No, 80 seconds. So more than a minute. Very considerable. Upgrade wise, main armaments mod 1, turrets and gun survivability. Better accuracy, no point going for the AA range since we're not going for the defensive AA. Engine survivability, a bit of a brain freeze there. Engine survivability, since losing your engine is the worst thing, regardless of if we run last stand, which we will. And finally, propulsion modification for better acceleration in smokes. We already have really good rudder shift on the ship, as you can see, 2.7 seconds. So we don't need the rudder shift module, but instead can go for acceleration. Captain perks wise, priority number 1 is of course preventive maintenance, followed by last stand, followed by superintendent. You want to be able to smoke up and ducka whenever you feel like it and not have to play sparingly around your smokes. And concealment expert. Once you have this basic build going, then you can build into better survivability. Once you have survivability, you can build into adrenaline rush, and once you have this, you can build into radiolocation. This is my favorite build on pretty much all USDDs. In fact, this is what I run on my gearing as well. So following the same build path works just fine all the way to tier 10. Anyway, that was my Mahan commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.